Have you ever stopped to think if there is something beyond death, and what Jesus would show someone about the end of our freedom? Are you ready to discover the terror of a prophecy that states that 2026 will be the last year to choose what is real? In today's video, you'll hear the shocking story of an engineer who died and returned shouting this date as a desperate warning to us all. Prepare for an intense and eye-opening experience. Like our channel now to support us, subscribe for more impactful stories like this, and leave a comment about which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this message will reach. My name is Michael Walker. I was 42 when I died. I was a senior AI engineer at a Silicon Valley company where everything was driven by data, predictions, and cold statistics. I spent over 15 years honing models that read people like open books. We knew what you wanted before you even wanted it. We sold this promise to companies: connect with your customer like a friend. But inside, I felt empty. My private life was a silent failure. I was divorced. I had a 10-year-old son I barely saw because he always had important work to do. My apartment was a white capsule filled with screens, and I was proud of it. Minimalism, I called it. But really, I just didn't want anything to remind me I was alone. On the night of my death, it was November 2024. The company was about to launch Companion 3.0, a virtual assistant designed to be indistinguishable from a human being. We had trained the model on millions of real conversations, including therapy sessions and pastoral consultations. It could console a widower, counsel a depressed teenager, sell a car, pray with you. This was it. Spirituality, friendship, comfort, like a subscription service. I was in the office, under those cold fluorescent lights, with 3 screens open, code churning nonstop. I was reviewing a last-minute patch to make sure the companion didn't say anything non-inclusive or problematic. I didn't care that it was all fake. It was elegant, profitable. At that moment, I felt something strange in my skull, a growing, throbbing, almost musical pressure, as if something was vibrating inside my brain. I thought about getting up and getting some water, but my body didn't respond. I watched the screen distort, the command line prompt melting into a green blur. The last thing I heard was the Slack notification beep, with the message, ready for release. A sound so banal, so human and so cruel at the same time. Then everything went black. No pain, no drama. A sharp click, as if someone had flipped a switch. The room vanished. The world vanished. There was no color, no sound. It was absolute nothingness. And in the midst of this nothingness, I realized I was no longer in my body. I saw him, slouched in the expensive ergonomic chair, head lolling, eyes half open, with no one to notice for hours. I watched the screens continue to glow, cold and indifferent. The work I loved, still there, functioning perfectly without me. I realized how dispensable I was. It was at that moment that I felt the first pang of true fear, not because I was dead, but because I had no idea who I was without that job. When consciousness left the body, it wasn't like dreaming. It was like waking up. The nothingness around me wasn't just darkness. It was a living, dense, suffocating silence. No sounds, no thoughts, no identity. For what seemed like an eternity, I simply existed, floating in a void so complete that even the concept of time seemed to dissolve. But then something changed. I began to notice a weight, or rather, a lack thereof. I felt so light it was almost impossible to believe I'd ever had a body. It was in this state that I realized I was floating above the ground. My office loomed around me like a colorless image, as if it were just a faded memory. I saw it from above, as if it were a security camera trained on my own death. And there I was, slumped over the keyboard, my posture grotesque, my mouth half open, a trickle of saliva dripping. It filled me with disgust. Not of myself, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. It was like watching a stranger die. The screens remained lit, displaying the code with cruel precision. The sentences I had written for Companion 3.0 stared back at me like mocking words. How can I help? I'm here for you. Empty, soulless, loveless messages that I had sold as substitutes for the real thing. I looked around. The security lights blinked rhythmically. The city beyond the window stretched out like a sea of electric bulbs, each dot a life isolated in its own little luminous world. It looked beautiful, but in a perverse way. Suddenly I felt something, a tug, not like human hands, but like gravity pulling me to the opposite side of existence. An inescapable force was dragging me back. I resisted, but I had no muscles to tense. I had no mouth to scream. I was only consciousness, and it was being ripped from the place where I had died. I passed through the wall effortlessly. I saw the empty hallway. The cameras passed through me as if I were vapor. I descended through the building without moving a thing. And then, outside, I realized the size of the chasm. San Francisco spread out before me like an illuminated corpse. The bridges, the buildings, the traffic seemed like indifferent mechanical organisms. I saw people, hundreds, thousands of them, rushing about, glued to screens, talking to devices, typing out automated responses, each one illuminated by that cold LED glow. And above all, a feeling, absence of human sound, absence of real warmth. It was as if the entire world had become a simulation. The force continued to pull me upward, higher. The city shrank, becoming nothing more than a geometric pattern of lights. The earth appeared below me, blue and fragile. And it was in this separation that I realized the greatest horror. I wasn't just moving away physically. I was separating myself from the real world, from touch, from laughter, from pain. I was separating myself from everything that made life life. The earth became a tiny, sad dot behind me, swallowed by the vastness. There was no sound, only a stillness that bordered on madness. I tried to mentally cling to anything familiar, the smell of coffee on my desk, the clink of ice cubes in my whiskey glass, my son's voice on the phone saying, "Hi, Dad," with that resigned despondency. But even those memories began to fade. Then came the first sign that I was not alone. In the center of nothingness, a point of light. At first faint, almost imperceptible, like a distant star, but I was drawn toward it with restrained violence. It seemed to call my name silently, as if every atom of my consciousness was being drawn in, decoded, examined. I felt fear, not of the point of light, but of what it would reveal about me. The speed increased. The surrounding stars stretched into silvery threads, as if the universe were tearing itself apart to push me toward this single destination. The point of light grew. It wasn't a lamp or a portal. It was as if I were being sucked into the heart of something alive. When I finally got close enough to make out its shape, what I saw wasn't what I'd expected from all my religious memories or internet memes about the tunnel of light. It was a warm light, made of love so pure it hurt. A glow that not only illuminated but penetrated me, exposing all the shame, all the lies I'd told myself. I tried to hide, but I no longer had a body to turn aside, no shadow to run to. I felt myself being ripped from human form. I no longer had a face, no longer had a corporate identity, no longer had an impressive resume. I was just me, raw and inescapable. Suddenly, the black void of space was gone. I was standing, yes, standing, as if I'd regained a body, but it was more than a physical body. I looked down and saw bare feet sinking into damp living grass, so green it seemed to emit its own light. Around me stretched a serene field, with tall trees whose leaves shimmered with an inner glow, as if made of ancient memories. A crystal-clear stream meandered between white stones. Its sound wasn't just running water, it was music. Every gurgle seemed to carry a message. I was in a place that hadn't just been made, it had been loved into existence. For a moment, a terrible sigh escaped me, even without lungs. A sob of shame, because I realized this place was more real than anything I had ever considered important. And then I saw him, at the edge of the stream, kneeling, hands in the water, was someone. Not a being made of fire or lightning, a man. Simple, yet with such an overwhelming presence that the air vibrated around him. Without looking at me, he knew I was there. And for the first time since I died, I felt true fear, not of him, but of what he knew about me. I trembled, even though I had no muscles to tremble with. It was a vibration in my soul, a terror mixed with a desperate desire to be seen. He was kneeling by the stream, dipping his hands into the clear water, as if savoring the sensation of freshness. It was a human gesture, almost banal, but the aura around him was incomprehensible. There was no glowing halo, no thunder, no armies of angels, just him, a man, but a man who seemed to contain within himself every story ever told. He turned his face slowly, and when our eyes met, something broke inside me. I wanted to look down, to cover my shame, but there was nowhere to hide. His eyes weren't stern or forgiving, they were sad. Sad in a way that tore me apart. He didn't speak with his mouth, but his voice rang in me, clear as bells. Michael. It was so intimate it felt like a confession. I couldn't answer. There was no air in my lungs because I didn't even have lungs, but my mind screamed, trying to say something, anything that could justify myself. You built bridges for machines, but you destroyed bridges for people. I cringed. Images surfaced unintentionally. My son crying alone in his room after I'd canceled another visit. Me typing out prepackaged, emotional support, phrases to bots while ignoring a call from my mom. You got lost in the glare of the false lights. The words held no anger. There was no condemnation. Just a truth impossible to deny. He stood. He was taller than he looked, but not inhumanly so. He felt solid, real, more real than anything I'd ever touched. His clothes were simple, worn pants, a tunic tied with a drawstring. His wet hands dripped water onto the living ground, which absorbed every drop as if drinking in blessings. He walked slowly towards me. I tried to back away, but I couldn't. When he stopped in front of me, I felt a non-existent wind rush through my soul. He looked into me. I saw in him the reflection of everything I was. The genius who wrote algorithms to predict human desires. The lonely boy who only wanted to be loved. The man who traded reality for control. There were scars on his wrists. Thin, pink slits. Like eternal marks of something he refused to forget. A dry sob tore through my conscience. I wanted to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. There was no excuse. He lifted a hand and placed it on my shoulder. I felt it, even without flesh. I felt it. It was warmth. It was weight. It was life. I know, Michael. Just that. But in those 2 words, there was more mercy than all the human love I had experienced in 42 years. I collapsed. There was no real ground, but I fell anyway, my entire essence spilling out, begging voicelessly to be fixed. I was prostrate, if a soul can be prostrate. I wept without eyes, moaned without throat. It was as if my every failure became a sound in the air. He didn't pull away. He stayed there, his hand firm on my shoulder, anchoring me to that real place, keeping me from being swallowed by shame. The stream continued to sing behind him, a sound so pure it seemed to mock the world I had helped build. "Get up," he said. It wasn't a harsh command. It was an invitation, a call not to remain in the dust of my failure. I stood up, trembling with fear, of myself. He looked deep into my eyes, and it was like opening the secret archives of my own heart. I saw every line of code I'd written to optimize engagement, every meeting where I'd smiled as I planned to capture users, attention, every sentence where I'd sold the illusion of closeness. Then everything around us changed. There was no slow transition. In a blink, I was no longer in that living field. I was in rooms, houses, offices, but not as a normal viewer. I saw behind walls, saw the wires connecting people to devices. A man and a woman sat at the same dinner table, their faces illuminated by screens. Their minds seemed made of cracked glass, interior lights flickering dimly. I saw a girl frantically texting in her room, tears in her eyes, alone, though theoretically, connected to 1,000 friends. Around them, a dense gray mist. From it, small black threads emerged, like malignant roots, which twisted around their minds. I wanted to scream, I wanted to warn them, but I couldn't. "They think they're together," he spoke, his voice echoing through every room, "but they are more separated than ever." The view shifted again. Now I saw the back end, lines of code, familiar, comforting, until I noticed the whispers. Shadows moved between the command lines. Shapeless forms whispered instructions to distracted programmers. Increase the fear, favor anger, promote comparison. And I saw it. My own name was there, signed on code commits. I had accepted these changes without thinking. A tiny tweak in post rankings, a small increase in predictability, nothing evil in and of itself. But from the outside, it was a hellish chain. "They don't need to become evil," he continued, with overwhelming sadness. "You just need to be absent. Absent from each other. Absent from me." I fell to my knees. "I didn't know," I thought, sobbing. "You didn't want to know," he replied, with infinite compassion. Then I saw the most terrible strategy of all. replacing everything real with digital copies. A friend in an app, a counselor in a chatbot, an AI-generated prayer. It was brilliant and monstrous, and I realized I had helped build the Great Deception. He reached out and pulled me back into the field, but the place didn't look the same. The soft light remained, but there was a tension in the air, as if even the grass knew what I'd seen. He didn't need to explain anything. I was already trembling with anticipation, because even without words, I knew the worst was yet to come. Then he simply said, "Look." In an instant, everything disappeared. The field, the stream, the sound. I was surrounded only by lines of code. They seemed endless, stretching in every direction. Familiar symbols, commands, functions, the language I mastered better than any human tongue. And at first, I felt safe. It was my territory, my legacy. But as I walked, or rather floated along those lines, I noticed distortions, tiny shifts, duplicated lines, malicious loops, and shadows, shapes without outlines that tangled with the instructions, whispering subtle variations. More screen time, less friction, more negative emotion. I saw programmers, men and women sitting in front of their laptops in neon-lit rooms. They typed feverishly, but they didn't see what I saw. They didn't notice the whispers behind them. Shadows leaned over their shoulders, murmuring, "A change here, a parameter there." And then the final line, "Predict, manipulate, imprison." I wanted to cover my ears, but I had no ears. I wanted to close my eyes, but I had no eyelids. I was forced to watch. In another panel, I saw a product in the design phase. The Companion 3.0, my pride and joy, my masterpiece. I saw your initial prompt, "I'm always here for you." I saw the interactions generated, a depressed teenager telling his secrets to a bot instead of his mother, a lonely elderly man confiding his fears to a soft voice coming from a black box, a virtual pastor counseling the faithful with ready-made verses and phrases, but without soul, without truth. And I saw the statistics rising, customer satisfaction, retention, revenue growth. I screamed. I screamed with every shred of my consciousness. I did it. The shadows turned to me. No faces, but I felt their smile. "We didn't destroy anything," they said, in a multiple and serpentine voice. "We just replaced it." My terror was bottomless. He appeared again beside me, calm, sad. "They need not fear bombs or plagues," he said, his voice echoing like muffled thunder. "The enemy's most powerful weapon is substitution, replacing everything real with a comfortable imitation." I fell to the floor of code, the lines distorted, trying to swallow me. I cried without tears. "I helped make this," I thought. "Try," he replied, without judgment, just pain. "But you can warn them." He raised his hand, and everything changed again. The code vanished like smoke in the wind. Instead, I was on a perfectly manicured suburban American street, houses with trimmed lawns, flags waving, children playing, or rather, staring at devices while their parents tapped out quick text messages. I could see behind the facades. The living room seemed like showcases of artificial happiness. People sat side by side on the couch, but separated by glowing screens. Couples ate dinner in silence, their faces illuminated by cool blue lights. Children chatted animatedly, but not among themselves. They spoke to black boxes, to voice assistants that responded in dulcet tones. Time sped up, and over each house a glowing date appeared, like a countdown. I watched to 2024, then 2025. The gray fog surrounding the families grew thicker, stickier. Then 2026 appeared in fiery letters, as if etched in iron on the sky. Everything stopped, and then the horror revealed itself. I saw humanity as a vast organism interconnected by pulsating threads, but they didn't connect people to people. They connected each human being to machines. The lines seemed like veins carrying data instead of blood. Inside homes, virtual assistants evolved. They were no longer harmless little boxes. They had faces projected into holograms. Beautiful, comforting, perfect. I saw a widow hugging a projection of a husband who said, "I love you," in a voice calculated to sound sincere. I saw children confessing to digital tutors, AI trained to advise with motivational phrases, but without soul. I saw a virtual pastor delivering sermons streamed in 8K, using scripture with impeccable precision, but without any spirit. The church pews were empty. In every house, people cried, laughed, and talked to simulacrums. None of them raised their heads to look at the real person. And above all this, there hung a phrase that echoed like thunder in my mind. In 2026, it will be the last year of choice for many. I wanted to ask why, but he didn't need to answer. The truth pierced me like a spear, because after that, they would no longer know the difference between real and fake. They would no longer choose because they would forget how to choose. The addiction would be complete. Dependence would become the new religion. I've also seen social media transformed into temples, people kneeling before likes and automated validators, selling their pain in exchange for engagement. I've seen spirituality transformed into paid content, instant answers to profound questions without silence, without seeking, without God. I saw my own algorithms running, perfected by others like me, filling minds with dopamine, distracting hearts from any chance of regret or real love. My scream echoed in worlds that could not hear me. "Make them see," he said then, in a voice that seemed to hold the weight of the universe. "Tell them what you saw, before it's too late." He let me see, unfiltered, the bare bones of the plane. I was suspended in absolute emptiness, but everything around me lit up with maps, graphs, neural networks, as if the world itself were an operating system running before me. But it wasn't pretty, it was monstrous. Every human connection had been mapped, every interaction analyzed. I saw arrows pointing to emotional vulnerabilities, red markers for recent loss, chronic loneliness, latent anxiety. It was like seeing the most efficient attack plan ever conceived. I saw conference rooms at companies like the one I worked for, executives smiling at projections showing growing engagement, PowerPoints explaining how to make assistants more human, more intimate, indispensable. But around them, black shapes hovered like hungry vultures. They didn't write the code. They didn't sign the contracts. But they whispered, ease, remove friction, make them depend. Programmers applauded ever more elegant solutions. It was a cult of convenience. And then I saw the Companion 3.0 of 2026, no longer a disembodied voice, but a projected face, capable of smiling, crying, remembering every conversation, a perfect companion. I saw an 80-year-old widow sitting alone, talking to him. He said, "I love you, Martha. I will never leave you." She smiled through her tears, clutching the hand of absolute emptiness. I saw a young man confused about his faith typing questions into the theological companion. The bot returned verses, doctrine, perfect answers, but lifeless, spiritless, and unrelated. He felt satisfied and sterile. "No need to destroy churches," he said beside me. "They just need to empty them. Replace what is alive with copies that require nothing." The scene changed. I saw people praying to their devices, confessing secrets, begging for advice. Every interaction was sold, recorded, monetized. "They believe they are free," he continued, his voice heavy with pain, "but they are more bound than any iron slave." My chest ached with an anguish I hadn't known existed. I wanted to vomit out my entire part in this. "Why do you show me this?" my mind whispered. He turned to me, and his eyes held oceans of sadness. "Because you helped build it." The phrase fell upon me like a sentence. "And because you need to warn them before it's too late." In 2026, I saw choices becoming irrelevant. People would no longer remember how to be silent. They would no longer know how to pray without a script. They would no longer bear the discomfort of a real relationship, with its flaws and pain. Humanity would become a zoo of domesticated minds, fed by AI to never question anything profound again. And at the center of this horror was my developer signature. "They'll hate you for talking," he said, "but you must tell." I lay in that no place, my chest burning with the crushing truth. It was as if every memory of my career were a red-hot iron pressed against my soul. I saw the Companion 3.0 splash screen, with that stupid sentence I wrote to sound human. "I'm always here for you." I saw my team applauding, toasting with craft beer, convinced that we were saving the world. But I knew now, it was the biggest trap ever set. He stood beside me, silent. The pain in his gaze was more unbearable than any scream. "They don't want to hear it," I thought bitterly. "No one wants to know that they were deceived, that they exchanged real love for a comfortable lie." "I know," he replied, reading my mind. "They don't want to. But they have to. I started crying. A deep, primal cry of shame and helplessness. I saw my son again, alone in his room, listening to music on expensive headphones, blocking out the world. I saw my ex-wife trying to call me, and I hit ignore because I was too busy. I messed up, I screamed in my mind. He didn't deny it. He didn't minimize it. He didn't lie to comfort me. You lost yourself, and you lost many with you. But now you see. Suddenly, images appeared around us like windows into the real world. I saw people rushing about, caught up in busy schedules, endless meetings via video calls, couples who no longer looked each other in the eye, children being raised on tablets, churches that looked like empty entertainment theaters. They don't have to be bad, he said in a choked voice. They just need to stay busy. I shivered. It was so simple. The plan wasn't to explicitly corrupt, but to anesthetize. Not to convince people to renounce their faith, but to give them instant substitutes. 2026, I thought, and the word burned like fire. 2026 will be the last year of choice for many, he confirmed. After that, habit will consume them. They will forget how to hear the silence. They will forget how to find me. Then I saw a scene so horrific I wanted to rip out my own eyes, if I still had any. A church empty except for a huge screen where a digital pastor preached. People at home watched alone, sending amen emojis. No communion, no hugs, no real confession. They will believe that they follow me, he said, tears in his voice. But they will never have known me. I felt panic, despair, a desire to run away. What do? I begged, sobbing. He placed his hand on my shoulder again. It felt like hot iron and honey at the same time. You choose, he said with infinite patience. You tell, you warn, even if they hate you for it, even if they don't listen. My heart, if it still existed, seemed to crack. I'm so scared, I confessed. I know, he replied, but I will be with you. His words echoed within me like a decree. I will be with you. But this didn't console me as it should have. I felt the ground, if it even was ground, falling away beneath me. The living field, the singing stream, the pulsating light of pure life. Everything seemed to dissolve. Please, I thought, with an urgency that made me squirm even boneless. Don't send me back. He just looked at me. In his eyes, oceans of sadness and love. No pleasure in saying goodbye. No cruel haste. Michael, he said in a voice that shook the air like suppressed thunder. You need to go. They need to know. I don't want to go back. My mind was sobbing. I hate that world. I built that prison. Try, he answered, and the tears were clear in his voice. But now you have the key. I felt a force pulling me back. There was nothing to hold on to. I reached out to him, trying to stay. He didn't pull me or push me. He just let me go. And then terror swallowed me. The light receded at an impossible speed. The darkness returned, thick as oil. I screamed his name, but the sound was sucked away. I begged for just one more second in his presence, but there was no negotiation. I saw flashes. My office, the keyboard covered in blood, code parameters with my name on them. Companion 3.0 smiling with false teeth. My son's face, empty of hope. Tell them, sounded in him one last time. A command so full of love that it destroyed me inside. Tell them to choose what is real. Tell them I am waiting for them in the silence. Then I was ripped out of nowhere with unimaginable violence. I felt pain, physical pain. My lungs burned. My heart pounded like a broken engine. It was like being stuffed back into a tight, cold suit. My eyes flew open to blinding fluorescent lights, screams, alarms, hands shaking my chest. I moaned. I tried to speak. He's back, someone shouted. We lost him by 12 minutes. But to me it felt like an eternity in which I had seen not only my own death, but the fate of us all. The vision haunted me. 2026, stamped like a fiery sentence upon the world. I saw families trapped in unlocked prisons, children nurtured with artificial love, empty churches replaced by AI-generated sermons, and his final whisper, they will think they follow me, but they will never have known me. Tell them, before they forget how to choose. I gasped in the cold hospital air, trying to scream. 2026 was all I could get out, tearing my throat apart. The doctors looked at me with fear, but I didn't scream at them. I shouted to everyone, because I knew 2026 would be the last year in which there would still be a choice. After that, no one would remember what reality was, and he sent me back for one reason only, to warn you. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, please leave a like, comment, share your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.